Hello and welcome to the Genuine Learning Blog. My name is Melissa Glasso, and today we're going to talk about somewhat of a surprise, the 2026 proposed changes to uniform guidance. Now, we weren't really expecting this somewhat because the uniform guidance is only required to be updated every 5 years, and we just had an update, which I've been covering in all of my recent single audit classes. However, the president had indicated through executive order that he was intended to making additional changes to uniform guidance as part of his new review process. And so, not a surprise, we did get a proposed change to uniform guidance. So there was, as I mentioned, an August 2025 executive order around grant making in particular that indicated that the president was hoping to make changes to the uniform guidance, and this is a result of that. So in terms of goals, they are revising to CFR, which is where we house the uniform guidance, to improve transparency, accountability, and oversight, clarify status, and reduce recipient burden. And the first thing you're going to notice is this word guidance. Today, we either refer to it as uniform guidance or uniform grant guidance, UG. The proposal is actually to call it uniform grant regulation. And this is intentional. This is to, instead of having it be guidance, which the federal agencies then have to adopt, the goal is to make this actual regulation. So instead of having multiple effective dates, it would be a government-wide effective date. So this would be a major change in how we think about the uniform guidance and kind of give it a little bit more teeth and force agencies to comply as opposed to allow them to adopt. So a little bit of a different perspective. There were a number of changes to definitions: federal award date, improper payment, PPI, unobligated balance, and then they removed, because they're proposing to get rid of, the definition for fixed amount awards, as well as protected personally identifiable information, or PPII. One of the things that everyone's talking about anytime I have a class, people ask about this, is that in the definition of the term compliance supplement, they have elected or proposed to delete the words annually updated, which means we might not get an annual compliance supplement soon. What does that mean? We are not sure. So OMB is currently in the process of reevaluating the appropriate frequency for these. Obviously, we get them on an annual basis now, but they are planning on doing some stakeholder engagement and reach out to find out what is the appropriate process for that. So stay tuned. As I mentioned when I was talking about definitions, they are revising the guidance to eliminate the use of fixed amount awards, which is kind of interesting because the last update to the uniform guidance actually doubled them. They went from $250,000 cap to $500,000 cap, and this would get rid of it. So again, always something interesting here. We talked about the guidance that we had received from the executive order. This proposes some additional merit review process information, requiring a new pre-issuance process, which aligns with the executive order that I've been teaching in all of my single audit classes recently. This would now incorporate it into the regulation, and then that would have to then kind of trickle down, and so consistent with the requirements of that executive order. They do also include an English focus, that everything be done in English language and US dollars in terms of any type of announcement coming out of the federal government. This one's an interesting one. This is just for clarification and informational purposes, not by itself representing specifically a conflict of interest, but they are proposing to require, in the interest of transparency, if a recipient or subrecipient had any employees who either worked on the proposal or who will support it that were employed by the federal awarding agency within the last 2 years. So who's going from the federal awarding agency to receiving that money and being able to use it. When we think about one of the big changes in the 24 uniform guidance, we talk about the requirements around cybersecurity. They are proposing to include confidential business information in addition as a type of business information that must have reasonable safeguards. Very surprising to me because it's not a should in that it's required or presumptively mandatory, but it's a should in terms of a best practice. Use COSO or Green Book. They're actually proposing to strike that language around the should, even though it is just simply a best practice. They're saying that it should be up to an entity to decide how to develop their internal controls. In terms of E-Verify, it would require all recipients and subrecipients who are receiving this to participate in the E-Verify program in terms of employment and confirmation of eligibility for contractors and employees who are performing work. They are also going to require the do not pay system to verify recipient eligibility to reduce improper payments, consistent with the Payment Integrity Information Act of 2019. In terms of procurement, these are to ensure cost controls and maintaining transparency through contract pricing, strengthening accountability for time and material contracts to ensure that we're not just overbilling and taking forever, propose revisions that materials under time and material contracts be supported by documentation and priced consistently with the market. And then they're going to discourage the use of cost reimbursement contracts moving forward. In terms of subrecipients, they would require pass-through entities to report in SAM.gov and strengthen the subaward data to require their confirmation of all subawards have been properly reported to SAM.gov. And they can, when they're looking at this, pass-through entities cannot treat transfers as internal allocations exempt from the subrecipient monitoring requirements. So again, that's a clarification in there. One of the big goals of the executive order was to make it easier to cancel an award, basically. So when we think about oversight in here, they are revising some additional guidelines to make it easier to cancel discretionary awards for any reason, not having to have a reason at all, and add new provisions around temporary suspension. So again, very consistent with what we've been talking about in a lot of our classes. It's coming into this proposed guidance. So if you are interested, you are allowed to respond. Obviously, this is a proposal. It's going to regulations.gov. It's a very short time period. This was very quick to turn around. It's a 45-day comment period. So July 13th comments are due, and you can submit that at regulations.gov. And if you're interested in reading more, this is the Federal Register document that you can see here that was issued on May 29th for you to be able to follow along. All right, well, that was a lot in our update for today. So hopefully this is for those of you who either receive awards or who audit and perform single audits. This is a little bit of an update on what could be coming down the pike. Again, this is just in the proposal phase now. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I hope to see you on a future blog. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.